Hello, welcome everyone. We're going to give a minute for everyone to join us on this wonderful Thursday evening. Hope you all are nearing the end of a fabulous day and really appreciative of you taking the time to come join us and spend some time with us to talk about the Bridge Forward. We'll give it just a moment for everyone to be able to segue in, get comfortable, get settled. And as I start to see those numbers of everyone hopping on come to a standstill, we'll get started this evening. So it looks like we might be in a good place to get going, so I can respect everyone's time and your attention in joining us this evening. My name is Karen Poplowski. I am the Chief Programs Officer for Responsive Classroom, which means I get the honor and privilege of overseeing the wonderful work we do here at this center with respect to the responsive classroom approach. And I'm joined here by two esteemed colleagues, Kristen Vinson, who is the Director of Marketing for Responsive Classroom, and Dr. Joe Tilley. So I will allow them to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Karen. I'm really excited to be here and to share the Bridge Forward with everyone. It's a product that we're very, very proud of, and we can't wait to have everyone learn more about it. And I'll let Joe introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Tilley. Just like Kristen and Karen, I'm super excited to be here. I work in the programs department with Karen and Kristen, and I am the programs research manager. And so I've had a history with Responsive Classroom now for several years, over 5 years now. I was a curriculum and instructional designer and a professional development designer. And so it's been an honor, and we're super excited about Bridge Forward. And so we're excited that you all are with us tonight.
And I don't think Joe may have mentioned, but Joe is one of the lead authors for the Bridge Forward. So you are getting firsthand information about these products. So we're going to dive right in for this evening and kind of set the stage for how our time will work together. The purpose and goals of this particular time and session and webinar together is to just provide an understanding of what the Bridge Forward is. You've probably joined because you've seen some communication and you've seen some different literature about the Bridge Forward, and you have some your interest has been piqued. So our goal is just to give you a high level overview of what that is, and then talk a little bit about what's included, give you a glimpse, and allow you to walk away with a resource that really gives you an inside peek and a sneak peek at these resources. We've had lots of people ask for sample packages, so this is your chance to get a look and a sample and sampling of what's included in the Bridge Forward, and then talk about why this is a high value and how we've structured these resources to meet the needs for you within schools in a way that is a cost-effective and a make sense way. And then we'll answer the questions that you have. So to kind of get started, I want to just unpack a little bit of the why. And you see a lot of research referenced here, but I want to really point out that the Bridge Forward was developed off of an identified need that sometimes gets overlooked, but has huge impact in our efforts to really achieve our goals and have our students meet their academic, social, and emotional goals that they have, and just have a successful trajectory as they move through school. You see a lot of different pieces of research, and this is the research that really drove us. This is the big why. And the problem of practice that really is perennial. It's just been an ongoing problem, and the data has been pretty clear that students make some drops as they do these transitions, and as they move from one school to another. And I think sometimes what we often may lump up as changes in adolescence, while that is a big, huge factor, what we have found through a lot of the research is not just that they're going through these adolescent changes, it is the change itself. It is the moving, and it is the changing environments that's adding to those stressors, and we're seeing this dip in performance. So while at the Center for Responsive Schools, and specifically with the responsive classroom approach, we have a holistic way to help students navigate this trajectory and look at, how we're developmentally meeting their needs. There's these discrete touch points that happen based upon this data that, when they go from elementary to middle and middle to high, there are this discrete touch points that we really kind of need to address. And without addressing it, just changing our teaching practice and changing our conditions for learning may only be getting us part of the way. So how can we really effectively address these discrete points? And so with that, I called on the right person, Dr. Joe Tilley, our research manager, to really kind of dive into that. And I'm going to allow him to talk a little bit about what we did with that literature and that research and how we moved that into the development of the products. So Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you so much for setting things up so beautifully, because it really is interesting when we started this whole project by doing a deep dive into literature around this. And so as we started to look around, what was so interesting was what we found was the literature talked about the impact that these transitions had. So this impact from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school, the anxiety that was around it. The literature talked about the need to have resources to support students, things like that. But what was so interesting was there wasn't a lot of resource that was out there. And so what we sought to do was to build a resource that teachers, schools, and parents could use that would allow students to be supported during this transition. And so what Bridge Forward is it's this opportunity to support students as they're going through this transition from elementary to middle and middle to high school. The way that we went about doing this, because we wanted to make sure that we got some real good feedback from teachers. So we sent out a survey. We asked them to tell us, what are the things that you're seeing? What are the things that you're noticing about what's going on with students at this age and with this transition? With that information, we were able to categorize it into these big picture kind of umbrellas that have multiple skills that are underneath them. But those are the things that are showing up on your screen right now. This adaptability, organization, time management, teamwork, self-advocacy, communication, prioritization. The reason that these are important and what we found when we were talking to teachers, when we were talking to school administrators, counselors, parents, the thing that we kept finding was that there was an assumption that was being made that somewhere these things were being talked about, they were being taught, they were being addressed, but that assumption was not always accurate. And what we also know is that schools kind of take on a life of their own. And so when you go from one school to another, you have to learn the way that what the expectation is around organization, for example. And so what we did was we identified them using those, using that feedback, using the literature, and we were able to categorize it in this. And you will notice through the resources that underneath these skills or underneath these bigger picture umbrellas are a lot of skills. And excuse me, if you're familiar with the SEL competencies, it's a similar idea in that adaptability has multiple skills underneath it. And so these are the skills that you would see throughout the resources, because this is where we landed when we did the research around it. The way that we went about this, though, because we also understood this is not something that happens in a specific place at a specific time only. These are transitions. These are things that are occurring constantly, whether it is a student going from the classroom to their locker, or a student trying to manage time in small groups, or a student knowing who they're supposed to go talk to when they have a problem in middle school versus elementary school, things like that. We recognize that there were multiple stakeholders that were at play here. The first one is the student, and everything is centered around the student. And the development of these resources was centered around, what does the student need? What are the skills? What do they need in order to be able to have those skills? So with that in mind, we developed first classroom-based resources. These were resources that I worked with multiple teachers in order to get us to a point where we could put into the hands of classroom teachers the resources that they needed to ensure that students were developing these skills, typically through things like an advisory period or other activities that are going on, but also just honestly making sure that this was being brought right to the front of the teacher's mind when they were thinking about these things. School-based resources. And so this is for school leaders, this is for your administrators, but also for your counselors, because so often the counselors are involved in this process. And we recognize that counselors also need some assistance in making sure that they have the resources in their hands that they need. And so from the school perspective, we developed things like a peer mentorship program. We developed visit days, open houses. We even talked about things like doing an orientation day, just getting students familiar with the classroom. And then lastly, and the one that I think is really neat that we were able to include in this is the parent information. And one of the biggest things that we wanted to do is we wanted to arm parents with information about what is going on with your middle school student, what is going on with your high school student, what do they need, what do they like, what do they dislike, what do they not need, those kind of things. And so we worked to develop things that would help parents to talk to their kids, to mirror some things at home that would help them to build some skills that would transfer into school. We know that, you know, the home is never going to be the same as the school, but there are some things that you can mirror and help and things like that. And even down to giving them some sentence stems and problem solving scenarios, things like that. But the coolest part about this is that we came at this from a triangulation type of place. We said the student's in the middle of this. And each one of these touch points is the idea that it's the classroom, it's the school, and it's the parent, and they're all working together on this to make sure that we close any type of gap that might exist with these competencies or these types of skills. So that is the way we developed the way that we went about developing them. And it's also they're really, the triangulation that we did really is an assistance to students.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. And so we're going to get to take a sneak peek inside. I'm going to post in the chat right now a link to a flip HTML. You're welcome to pull that up on a device and flip through that yourself. I'm actually going to be also displaying that link here and kind of walking us through what that particular resource looks like. So,
Erin, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
can you, okay, so you're posting to everyone. Okay, great.
Yes.
Because someone texted me saying it looked like the chat was disabled. So
Oh gosh,
I want to make
I
sure
think everyone, can everyone check and
on
see
your end
that they're getting it? There should be a link to a flip HTML. If I can get some thumbs up from participants.
maybe you can see the chat. Let's see.
Or if someone can just respond in the chat and say, yep, I have it. I did send the flip HTML link in the chat.
Yep, someone says they got it. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kristen. I'm so glad.
Everybody.
So you have this is download. You have this link. You're able to share this. We invite you to share this with people within your schools and districts who are interested in it, if they're wanting to know more about this. But we're going to go ahead and just take a peek inside of what it looks like. So first of all, we have the overview of what it is and kind of our catchphrase. You know, transitioning to a new school is hard, and we are here to help. That's why we built this and what we're about. I would, as you look at this, there's tons of QR codes. I'm not going to walk you through every single thing this access. I will say this particular page, this overview will lead you to a landing page that does have, it's about a 5-minute video. That video does provide a nice overview, some testimonials from teachers and students and parents about these resources, and it provides additional glimpses into what this is and what it's about. So you can check that out on your own. But also in this introductory booklet, we have provided you a glimpse of the leader view. As you can see here, we've taken everything from peer mentorships, open house days, setting up visit days, orientation, back to school, different orientation schedules. And what I really want to point out is you'll see we've provided out of the box guidance. So what kind of structures do you want to have for peer mentorship? How do you set them up? What are they doing that whole first year? And what are some considerations for that? We've also provided you tons of sample schedules. So there's tons of different activities that you'll see here and different components, such as, introducing, doing different tours of the building, or meeting with different teachers and exploratory classes. There's all kinds of different things to do, but it's all been coded so you can kind of choose your own adventure, thinking about what types of time you have. Maybe you have a half day, maybe you have an hour, maybe you have 2 hours. We provide a little guidance on what that might look like. So it truly is out of the box and a chance for you to kind of set that up. There's also guidance on what are things you need to be thinking about 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, as you look at the school-based level. In the classroom guide, this is really nice because outside of the activities that are happening around, discrete functions such as orientation or open house or visit days, there's also a chance for them to be doing things that are embedded within their classroom time. For the elementary students, it can be an introduction to RAM and to the responsive advisory meeting and what advisory might look like at the middle school, even if they're not going into a place that uses responsive advisory meeting. This structure is still really nice to help them just feel grounded and supported as they explore a lot of these skills. And in addition to that, there's nice ways to there's other activities. So there's a bank of activities that teachers can look to based upon some different skills they want to hit, and think about how they might just embed some different things toward the end of the year, the beginning of the year, to support students during that transition. For the parents, one of the big things that we have provided them is a glimpse at the development. And we know that many of us have had the experience when we kind of stop and look at this information and development. As consultants, we have this experience when we do this with teachers, when we show them some things they can be expecting, and they kind of stop and look, oh, that's my students. The same happens for parents when we give them this gift, because they are able to look and say, yep, I'm seeing this in my student. It's kind of that, what to expect when you're expecting a middle schooler kind of guide, to really know what you might see happening there, and give them some tips on how they can go about communicating with their students. And also, easing some of their anxiety. What are some things they can be put in place? And the beauty of this is it's all bundled, packaged, and ready to go. So it's nothing that busy classroom teachers need to print off, assemble. It's there at their fingertips. And it allows both the classroom teachers to have something just off the shelf, and also parents to have something off the shelf. And it's beautifully packaged and designed. And so when it comes home, it's something that stands out to parents. It's not another email that just gets sent that may go into a junk folder. It's something substantial that they can stop. And it's also easy enough that it's not something they need to find time, put to the side to like a 200-page book where, okay, I'll learn about this when I have a moment. It's something that they can it's a reference text that can be just at their fingertips, and they can revisit and use to help guide them. So it's highly practical and useful for that. And so with that, what we have put together is we've kind of looked at different segments. There's different responsibilities at each level. So, for the elementary educators, they want to make sure they're sending off their students really well prepared. And so they're taking some initial steps to start ease some of that anxiety. So for the elementary phase, what that package looks like is we have a leader guide. And at this phase, the leaders are really just thinking about what should we be doing to support the students. Their main role is really kind of facilitating the conversation and supporting their teachers and their parents as they're preparing for this. So with that, our standard packages are based around are based around 2 classroom guides. And for every classroom guide, there's 24 parent guides. So as you can see the math, if we have 2 classroom guides, we have 48 parent guides. I do want to stress that these are the standard packages. There are also options to customize. So for example, if I have 3 teachers at my school, or if I have multiples of, if I have 6 teachers, I can certainly order multiple packages, or I can order individual packages or individual items to supplement. And what I will say, I'll just kind of explain this a little bit more here, and then I won't repeat it as we go through the bundles. Also, the beauty of this is really once you have it, so it's a one-time upfront cost, but once you have it at your fingertips, all you're really needing to do is replenish the consumable items, which would mostly be the parent items. If you change teachers and the teacher has lost their curriculum, you might have to buy them a new classroom resource book, or if you change leadership staff and that hasn't been left behind, you might have to replenish those. But really what you're just doing is you're putting this program in place, and you're putting this collection of resources in place. And then each year it's just renewal, and it's just sending those out. And then as a district, they might look and say, hey, we're going to send it out at the elementary level, and then we're also going to go send it out. So parents might be getting it from both, but it's a chance for them to make sure they have that information. Because like all of us, people can lose things. So it's just a chance to make sure there's a safeguard to care for them no matter where it's getting picked up. And so at the middle school package, as you can see, the job's a little different here. There's a lot more on them because the middle school has the big job in this transition. It's transitory by nature, but they're accepting new students. And so they're trying to acclimate them to what they can expect at the school. So that's where it's really robust with visit days, orientation, peer mentorships, how you're doing all those pieces. That's the standard package, is entering students into that entry point, which is typically at 6th grade, but also the add-on for high schools, they also can add on the high school. So they can add on things to help students transition to high school and begin that process of transitioning to high school. And you see how those items are bundled. Again, these are the standard packages, but you can certainly customize to school size. And then as you look at the high school package, that is really geared. We know that 9th grade, as you saw back in the data, 9th grade is the make or break year for graduation. There's just a lot of data to support that. So how students enter into high school is extremely important. So we have resources to help ease that transition at that level too. For this, based upon school sizes and traditional high school sizes, the packaging bundle changes slightly in that we're taking into account 5 classroom teachers at that 9th grade level for that standard. But again, the 24:1 ratio carries over with respect to the parent books that we provide. And we really highly encourage this, and it's beautiful if this happens across the district level. And so you can see at the district level how that kind of comes together. I will also add another value add for this is when schools purchase a package, what comes along with this is a quick start guide. And that quick start guide has guidance for how to have a staff meeting to talk about distribution of these materials, how they're going to handle it. So we really have equipped schools to be completely independent and but yet given them really clear guidance on how they can go about this. And all for, it's a big topic, and schools can get started for a price less than a fraction of the price less than a typical standard 1 day of professional development. So you're really able to tackle a big problem in a very time and cost effective way, and then really invest into that and with that. So that is the gist of the overview of the materials, and that's the flip HTML that I have there that we've shared in the chat that you can certainly take a look at. I do want to spend some time. I will honor our time commitment to a half an hour, but what I will say with that is we are here for you, so we can extend our time. Do feel free to drop off after the 30 minutes is up, but we will entertain any questions that have come through the Q&A or through the chat box. Kristen, I don't know if we have any pose?
Yeah, we have a couple that came in through the Q&A, and I encourage everyone to use the Q&A feature. It looks like our chat might be disabled for attendees. But we do have a couple questions that came through the Q&A, and one of them is that someone's asking if this is relevant for standalone elementary schools, or is it geared more for elementary and middle school partnerships? And I think you helped answer that question, but if there's anything else you want to clarify about that, Karen?
Yeah, I think I will say it depends on how that transition looks. So for example, if it is a K-8 school, I'm saying like it's a standalone K-8 school where students will move through that. Definitely those elementary materials would be beneficial. I would say the middle school materials would almost be more beneficial because it's going to allow you to look at some of those open house and visit day pieces. We've had questions also, so the middle school materials might be, even if they're just transitioning up to grades, so that's a big transition when you're going from having one teacher to multiple teachers. These resources can be appropriate for that as well. For standalone, if people want to tackle this at elementary level, yes, what you might want to do is if you're wanting to do some of those additional activities, you may want to just look at picking up the middle school leader guide, having the elementary package, and then accompanying that with just a middle school leader guide, rather than having the whole other package, which I think will answer the question about single pricing for teachers. These materials are available to be bought individually. They work well when the reason we have packaged them and bundling them is because we do feel like if the whole school, if like Joe had said, that triangulation, when everyone is really on the same page with this, that's where we feel like we can get the impact. But we also recognize that there are places where maybe not everyone is on the same on board with all this, and some people may want to try things out or do things to just test the waters. These things are all available for single purchase only.
Yep, and to find those, when you're on any of the package pages, so right now I just pulled up the website and I'm on the Bridge Forward Middle School package page, and right at the bottom it says these items are also available individually here. So Karen, in the link, in the chat, could you, she's already ahead of me.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think I did it just to you, and I need to change it
Perfect.
to everyone. I will get
Okay.
that. Yep.
Great. Yep. We'll drop the link to the bookstore and then to the packages there. But if you're on any package page, it says these items are also available individually here. And then you can click there and buy just a classroom leader guide. And then someone was asking, would this resource work as a 5th grade SEL class and an 8th grade advisory? And yeah, absolutely. So the elementary materials mention ideas about morning meetings or gatherings where you can, review some things with students. And then there are advisory plans in there to prepare students for coming into middle school and then an 8th grade exiting out. So for sure. And then also, one of our good friends is asking, is the elementary the transition to middle school? And is the middle school version the transition to high school? So what's the high school all about?
Great question. Great question. So I will say the elementary is the transition into middle school. The middle school is also the transition into middle school. So if we think about that, it's a place for elementary. They have the job of exiting students into that transition. So they're focused on exiting. I'm exiting students and kind of doing some pre-work and easing some anxiety. But then as middle school people are accepting them in the middle school package, it's really geared toward, what's that beginning of 6th grade experience? So how am I dipping back and communicating with my 5th grade schools that are feeding into me? How am I setting up visit days for them, these incoming 6th graders? So it's the incoming 6th graders that middle school package really targets, the core package. The high school package is really geared for incoming 9th graders. So if you think about it, for both the middle school and the high school packages, it's about the incoming, the induction in are the main features. The reason we've had it added elementary is because we know elementary people care deeply about their students, and they're sending off and often those anxieties happen at the end of the year where you start to see fifth graders just really nervous and anxious because they're not going to be with their friends next year and they don't know who they're going to talk to. And they're wondering if they're starting to do this wondering. And so we want to be able to have those classroom teachers who've been so close with them and the schools that have cared about them for so many years and really ushered them from a big part of ushering them in childhood and adolescence to be able to have some resources to support them. In addition to what the middle school might be dipping down to do with them.
Yeah.
And Joe, I don't know if you want to add anything about that distinction.
No, I think that's actually a really good explanation. And I actually just want to go back real quick and add, for those that are K-8, the skills themselves are still important. And so you can start to think about in terms of when do we want to roll this out, but the skills themselves are still really important to kind of focus on and things like that. But as far as the explanation for what goes where, I think that was really good, Karen.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you raised that question, because what we find is we are so steeped in this. And so really us raising that question about what are we really helping them transition into, I think allows that distinction so that we understand the elementary is really preparing you for middle. The middle is preparing you to come into middle. And then there is a high school, and not to convolute things, but hey, if those middle school people really want to take it on, there's resources to transition them into middle and then start easing anxiety of their 8th grade students. So it kind of, it hits it all across the way, because we know those fears and anxieties happen at the end of the school year as people are leaving 5th. They happen at the beginning of 6th as they're entering 6th. They happen at the end of 8th when they're getting ready to enter. And, I know having witnessed some of that firsthand, like in 8th grade, they're thinking about, I need to pick out classes next year. Or sometimes in some places, they're looking at like, where am I going into high school? They are trying to like apply to high schools. There's a lot of pressure and stress that can be happening for them. And some of that dips down and starts at the end of 8th. So we didn't want to just ignore that transitory period. It happens at the end of the school year for the exiting students and at the beginning of the school year for the incoming students at those levels.
Karen, we have a request for you to share the link to the booklet again. I think some people might have joined late and they didn't get it. And then I sent you another link just to the regular website page, because you sent the link for the combinations, but you can just share that.
Yes, we'll share.
Someone is asking, does the elementary assist with the transition into school like a 4 or 5-year-old? And the answer is no. This is really about exiting elementary and going into middle. But however, Jennifer, that's a great idea for a new product that maybe we'll have to work on at some point. Karen has a great question. Our middle school starts with 5th grade. Any issues to focus on with middle school package with younger students? And I had the same question too, actually, Karen, because our middle school here starts in 7th grade. Absolutely
not. It can be focused. It's really about what's that discrete transition point. So the way it's geared, and we try to explain that in the text, that as our standard, we are talking about 6th grade, but please translate this to your own unique school setting. And it's really about your exiting students, your incoming students.
Yeah, and the parent guides do share some developmental characteristics of students at a wide variety of ages to cover that gap, because some middle schools start in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. Joe?
Yeah, Kristen, I just wanted to piggyback on that, because I think that mentioning the developmental piece is worth re-mentioning, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because that was always at the forefront of what we were doing here, is the idea of developmentally, what do students need at this age? And if it's 5th grade or it's 6th grade, what's happening is there's a different structure that we're asking students to be successful in. And so from a developmental standpoint, we know that we still have to support them in different ways. And so the resources were developed with that in mind. And so I think what you'll find is that it's adaptable if it's 5th grade that is the transition period, or if it's 6th grade that's the transition period. It's really, I think that's one of the most amazing things about this, is that we really did come at this from a perspective of the student being in the middle and really understanding what developmentally they need.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions coming in, Karen. I want to let everyone know that we'll send out a follow-up email tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get the recording ready and send that out along with a link to this guide. You're welcome to share it with anyone and everyone who might be interested in this resource. And then we'll also be able to send the follow-up email to anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight. Karen's asking, is there any support other than the guides? Maybe you want to mention the videos that are embedded in the resource?
Yeah, absolutely. Within the quick start guides kind of give you a glimpse at how to get started. So when you order it, you're going to get your resources, and the top it's going to be a quick start guide, almost like a package slip that says, here's your wonderful things, here's how you can get started. Also know that all the resources are are off the shelf and provide a lot of guidance. As Kristen did mention, the other thing is that for many of these things, there are video examples. There's QR codes embedded throughout. So if you're trying to get a glimpse of what might this look like in action, there are QR codes that give some examples and samples of that in action.
Yeah, there's some great videos. Yeah, of teachers talking about using the guides, of students talking about being a peer mentor or helping run an orientation or an open house for the younger students. So you get a glimpse into what it looks like and sounds like to use the materials.
And so that's kind of the copies per each. I honestly don't have the pricing offhand for each single copy. As Kristen did say, if you go to the product pages, that those are all listed as you look at the individual pieces to look at like one copy of each. What I will say is that they were bundled specifically to be able to have schools think about it, because as I mentioned, it was designed for us to think about how could you get the maximum impact in this, and being able to have off-the-shelf resources that that it doesn't require school time, doesn't require someone to send an email. It won't get lost in email. We spent a lot of time, our team, going back and forth. Is this a digital link? How do we give parents this information? And what and had conversations with parents. Like, what do you want? Do you want and much of the feedback was a booklet would be nice, not something too big, not something, and not a paper that I'm going to just throw off to the side, and not an email that I'm going to toss. Yeah. So that's why we went with the booklets. And that's why we went with this particular thing, so that it would be something that schools could, it would all be there for them and ready and easy for them. And as I said, this topic is hefty enough that you could really spend a whole day deep diving in and helping schools completely customize that. But what we chose to do is to provide all that stuff at your fingertips with really clear, practical examples and schedules and samples, so that your teams could do that work. And it was the most cost effective for us to give you all the great stuff and tools at your fingertips, and then you to be able to take this and implement this right away.
Yeah. And Todd, just to help answer your question, the guides range from $24 to $32 each. So if you do the math, it's definitely cost effective to buy them in the bundles or the combination packages that we have available. But we do understand that you might need to customize and add on, or you might want to buy it and preview it yourself before you invest your whole school into it. And so that's why we have them individually. And Karen, there's another Karen on here who has another excellent question. Do teachers need responsive classroom training to support the ideas in this program?
And that's what's beautiful about it. That's what's beautiful, is that if you don't have responsive classrooms training, this stuff still makes sense. And it's laid out so explicitly that you are able to pick it up, because there are if you've never run an advisory meeting before, there's clear explanation on what that looks like. And there's example videos, and there's other tips for you to just pick this up and be able to do it. For schools who already have the approach, it's just a beautiful complement. For those who don't, it's very explanatory. We were very specific about that. We wanted to make sure that, our goal was to address a problem of practice. So we wanted to make sure that no matter what school these resources land in, it's able to really impact the teachers, the parents, and the students.
Yeah, and we do know that some schools are in a transitory phase with the approach, where some teachers have had some training, some new teachers have come in and just haven't had the training yet, and it'll work for anyone in your building.
And there's a last great question about how long would it take to go through? Joe, I think we had designed it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really like really focusing on the last 2 to 3 weeks of school at the exiting point, and the 2 to 3 weeks at the beginning for the most part, are the big pieces.
Yeah, Karen, the classroom-based resources are really designed for the last couple of weeks of school or the first couple of weeks of school. The school-based resources are typically designed, the peer mentorship program would be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
The other pieces would be, summertime or right at the beginning of school. And then the parent resources are somewhat of an ongoing type of piece that they would use as they went along. And so it really is complementary to who is using it. And then the counselor resources are also kind of.
Yes, I forgot about the counselor. Yeah, counselor resources with different scenarios. Because Joe, can you talk a little bit more about the counselor resources? Those are really great and unique resources that I don't think we highlighted as much.
Yeah, and thank you, Karen, because so one of the things that we found when we were doing the research was that there was this thing that was also occurring where sometimes kids would get in trouble. And a lot of it had to do with they didn't have the skill. And if you think about something as simple as knowing who to talk to when you have a problem, sometimes that will come out in a wrong way in a classroom, and then they'll need to go speak to a counselor. And so what we wanted to do was to put in the hands of counselors resources that would help with these skills, both from the perspective of how to talk to students about what these skills are, and really focusing on here's how you can do this, here's how you can build this skill, as well as giving them scenarios to talk to students about, giving them additional sentence stems, things like that, just to help them build their toolbox when working with students who might need a little bit extra assistance because perhaps the skill that they have learned associated with some of these transitional pieces isn't working as well in that particular environment.
Yeah. And Bonnie, I think what you're saying, if people can see what Bonnie put in the chat, it is absolutely a beautiful complement to those resources and that work and that approach of thinking about the beginning of the school in the first 6 weeks and how you close out the school year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So it is our hope and goal that, as I said, we really looked at this, and it is really about helping students. And it's our hope and goal that we're able to do something we know teachers are time poor, and schools are, you have a lot on your plates. Everyone has a lot on their plates. So we didn't want to have to come bring a problem and have people have to spend time pulling all this stuff together. We've done that heavy work. And so we've now identified that, and it's a chance for you to take something, make it your own, and know that you have something at your fingertips to address this. And we do feel the biggest impact would be with schools and districts approaching this and taking this approach and having a strategic approach as they move through it. It's also effective when individuals. So, it's whether it's done by teachers, by schools, or by districts. We really hope that you find this resource something that can really help students. And I will share this one thing, and that's it. I was at a college visit, and maybe that's where we need to have the Bridge Forward go next. But I was at a college visit, and a parent had asked, what's something that will allow students to be successful? And the college is a highly competitive school. And they said, time management, being flexible. They named so many of these things, and I just ticked off in my head, bridge forward skill. And it was amazing. And a parent said, okay, so how do we teach them that? It was a technical engineering school, and they were so worried about whether their kid had calculus or where they were standing in this. And they were they were just really concrete thinkers. And we're like, okay, how do I learn that? They need to know that now. And it was interesting because it's those skills. And so it's those skills that really help students along the way. And it really solidified for me the power in this work. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we start helping students adjust to these changes and have the skills to adjust to these changes starting at end of 5th to 6th? and that at 8th to 9th, and really be able to change some of that historical perennial data that's been out there about student achievement at these critical touch points. So that's my last feel about this. Obviously, we're passionate about it because we think it does have power to change students' lives. So we hope you partner with us to take that on.
Karen, we have one last question about sharing a link to purchase single copies. So I'm going to send it to you if you just want to put that in there. But really any of our package pages,
Yep.
it's a link at the bottom, but maybe we can work to make that more obvious on our bookstore too. And
yeah. So
all of your
Yep.
questions tonight have been so helpful for us because this is really our first time getting this product out into the world. And your questions just help us be able to talk about it better and share it with everyone. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate it. Thank you.